Hello, this is Francisco, and today I'll be going over my edits to Assignment 1 on Harvard's online game development course. The 4 tasks of this assignment are to make pipe gaps slightly random, the second is to make pipes intervals slightly random, the third is to award players a medal based on their score using images, and the fourth is to implement a pause feature. So the first one is to make pipe gaps slightly random. I'll be switching between the original code and my code so that you can see the differences. The first thing to notice in the pipe pair is a variable called gap height, which has a fixed gap between the pipes. And over here in the lower self pipe, you can see that it adds gap height. So it's adding 90 always. So to make it random, I took away the variable and instead in its place, I put a math.random with a minimum of 90 and a maximum of 140. So every time it spawns a bottom pipe, it's going to have a random distance of 90 to 140 from the top pipe. The next task is to make pipe intervals slightly random. And here in the update playstate function, the condition to spawn a new pipe is met when self.timer is greater than 2. So this is a very specific condition which causes the pipes to spawn in a very uniform manner. In my code, I created a new variable called random spawn and I set it equal to math.random 1.5 to 12. So in the original code it was set to 2 and it says spawn a new pipe pair every second and a half. So in mine it's going to be between 1.5 and 12, and since self.timer has to be greater than that, it's always going to have to be greater than a different number between that interval, which is going to cause it to be very random. So now let me show you how that looks. The next task is to award players medals. So we go to the score state and we can see in the original, all it does is show you that you lost and it displays your score and then tells you to press enter to play again. So to give medals, we need to render an image of a medal, in this case 3, bronze, silver, and gold. And we also need to set what score fulfills the requirement of obtaining each medal. So for mine, if you got less than 10, you get no medal. And I put, no medal. You can see here that there's also a Flappy font and then a medium font. I sort of consider Flappy font to be pretty goofy, so I kept the sorry no medal to be Flappy font. And then when you actually get a medal, you can see that it just uses medium font and it goes all the way throughout until it says press enter to play again. So the condition to get a bronze is if you get 10 or less than 20. Silver is if you get 20 or less than 30, and if you get 30 or more, you get a gold medal. And all of this is placed within the render function to draw the image. The last thing we had to change was adding a pause feature. So we can see here that the play state is actually responsible for our gameplay, and there's a lot of code here that goes about spawning pipes and moving the bird. But in order to add a pause feature, you have to get the gameplay to stop. So to press the pause, we're going to use the P key, and we have to set a condition where if that key is pressed, the game is paused. So the way I did this was I created a variable called game paused, and you notice that I also have to create a variable for the image that shows up on the screen. Initially, the game pause is going to start false, and then in play state update, if you press P and game is paused, then you go about making all the conditions of a paused game. So you play a little sound that's supposed to represent pressing pause. You stop the background music. Scrolling becomes false because you don't want things to be moving. The pause image is another variable so that when it becomes true, the pause image shows up on the screen, and I'll show you what the render for that looks like. And then game pause becomes true. And here it says if game pause is equal to true. Obviously we just changed this, and this is an else if. So since originally it was false, we just sort of skipped that. And none of the actual code for gameplay happens. So in the next iteration, it checks to see if the keyboard was pressed again, because when you press it again, you unpause the game, okay? So in that case, if it is paused and you pressed P, it turns out the game is paused, then you play the sound of pressing P, and then you replay the music, scrolling becomes true, pause image becomes false, so it removes the pause button image, and you unpause the game, so game paused is equal to false. So once game pause is actually equal to false after checking to see if P was pressed, then all of the game code is under this if game paused is equal to true. Then everything just happens the way it's supposed to. So here in the render, you have if pause image, so that means if pause image is true, you draw pause image. And if it's not true, then you don't draw it. And there's the pause image, and you press it again. Pause. Alright, well, have a good day.